Picture this: Mother's Day 2020, a day meant for celebration, turns into a living nightmare for a family in Colorado. In the tranquil town of Salida, Colorado, Suzanne Morphew, a loving mother of two, mysteriously vanishes. The last time anyone hears from her is on the morning of May 10th, when she goes out for a bike ride and never returns. The day that should have been filled with joy and love instead becomes a day of shock, confusion, and a desperate search for answers. Suzanne's abrupt disappearance sends ripples of disbelief through the tight-knit community. The vibrant woman, known for her radiant smile and kind heart, is suddenly nowhere to be found. The uncertainty surrounding her whereabouts sends the entire town into a state of panic. Immediately, local law enforcement, alongside Suzanne's family, launches an intensive search. The serene landscapes of Salida are combed through, every nook and cranny explored, every stone unturned. Yet, Suzanne remains missing. Her family is left grappling with the terrifying reality that Suzanne is gone, and they have no idea where or why. In the midst of the chaos and heartbreak, a glimmer of hope emerges in the form of bizarre clues left behind. A tranquilizer gun cap found in the dryer, suspicious phone activity on the day Suzanne vanishes, and an outlandish alibi involving a chipmunk. These puzzling elements add to the mystery, deepening the intrigue and raising more questions than answers. And so, the quest to uncover the truth about Suzanne's disappearance began, a journey filled with bizarre clues and unexpected twists. As investigators dove deeper into the case, they stumbled upon a series of peculiar findings. Among these oddities was what came to be known as the chipmunk alibi. Barry Morphew, Suzanne's husband, claimed to have been away from home on the day of Suzanne's disappearance, occupied with a task as mundane as setting a chipmunk trap. While this may sound innocuous on the surface, it raised eyebrows among investigators. The timing was suspicious, and the alibi seemed almost too trivial, too conveniently timed. It was a piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit, and it sparked an intense scrutiny of Barry's actions and whereabouts on that fateful day. Then, there was the tranquilizer gun. This was no ordinary firearm. It was a tool designed to subdue, to incapacitate. Investigators discovered a cap from such a weapon in the family's dryer, a find as perplexing as it was chilling. Had Suzanne been tranquilized? Was this how she was taken without a struggle, without anyone noticing? The cap was a silent testament to an unsettling possibility, and it further cast a shadow of suspicion over Barry. Perhaps the most intriguing clue, however, was the spy pen. This device, typically used for covert operations and surveillance, was found among Suzanne's personal belongings. It was a mysterious piece of the puzzle, one that suggested a level of fear and distrust. Was Suzanne worried for her safety? Was she trying to gather evidence of her own? The spy pen was a silent witness to Suzanne's unspoken anxieties and fears, painting a picture of a woman who felt threatened in her own home. Each clue, each piece of the puzzle told a story. The chipmunk alibi, the tranquilizer gun cap, the spy pen, they were all fragments of a larger narrative, a narrative of fear, suspicion, and untimely disappearance. Was Barry Morphew merely a man with a string of unfortunate coincidences, or was he a husband with something sinister to hide? Each clue seemed to add a new layer of complexity to the case, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. As the investigation progressed, suspicion began to fall on one individual: Barry Morphew, Suzanne's husband. His behavior following Suzanne's disappearance raised eyebrows. Barry was not the grieving husband one would expect. Instead, he was oddly composed, maintaining a strange calmness that many found unsettling. Soon the authorities began to dig deeper into Barry's actions around the time of Suzanne's disappearance. They discovered that Barry's phone activity on the day Suzanne disappeared was suspicious, to say the least. His phone indicated movement inconsistent with his account of his whereabouts, adding to the mounting evidence against him. But it was the discovery of a tranquilizer gun cap in the dryer of the Morphew household that really turned the tide against Barry. This unusual finding suggested a sinister possibility. Could it have been used in Suzanne's disappearance? The authorities certainly thought so. Barry's behavior, the suspicious phone activity, and the tranquilizer gun cap were all pieces of a puzzle that seemed to point to one chilling conclusion. Barry Morphew was involved in his wife's disappearance. This led to his eventual arrest, and he was charged with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and attempting to influence a public servant, among other crimes. However, despite the mounting evidence and Barry's arrest, the case was far from closed. Suzanne's body had not been found, and without it there were still many unanswered questions. The mystery of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance continued to confound investigators and captivate the public's attention. But with Suzanne's body yet to be found, the case was far from closed. Barry Morphew's trial was a spectacle, filled with tense exchanges and shocking revelations. The courtroom was a battleground, where the defense and the prosecution clashed over the fate of a man accused of a heinous crime. The defense, led by a team of seasoned lawyers, painted a picture of Barry Morphew as a man wrongfully accused. They argued that the evidence against him, including the tranquilizer gun cap found in the dryer and the suspicious phone activity, was circumstantial at best. They claimed there was a black hole of evidence, with crucial details missing or unaccounted for. They suggested other potential suspects, creating an air of doubt around Barry's guilt. The defense's arguments were met with fierce opposition from the prosecution. They highlighted Barry's alleged fraudulent casting of his missing wife's vote for the 2020 presidential elections. This act, they argued, was indicative of a man capable of deception and manipulation. They also pointed to Suzanne's expressed fears and unease towards her husband, creating a narrative of a troubled marriage. Throughout the trial, key testimonies were brought to the fore. Suzanne's lover, as well as Barry's alleged girlfriend, were called to the stand. Their testimonies added layers of complexity to the narrative, hinting at secret lives and hidden truths. Barry Morphew himself maintained his innocence throughout. He asserted that he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance. He provided an alibi that seemed almost too peculiar to be fabricated, involving a chipmunk, which he claimed was the reason for his suspicious phone activity on the day Suzanne went missing. The trial was a whirlwind of claims and counterclaims, evidence and testimonies. It was a spectacle that held the nation's attention, as everyone anxiously awaited the verdict. However, the conclusion of the trial did not bring the closure that many had hoped for. Despite the intense scrutiny, the trial ended inconclusively, leaving many unsatisfied. Questions still hung in the air, unanswered. The fate of Barry Morphew remained uncertain, and the mystery of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance continued. The trial may have ended, but the search for the truth carried on. 3 years after Suzanne's disappearance, a grim discovery would finally bring some closure to the case. It was an early autumn day in September 2023 when the search teams, who had not wavered in their determination, found what they had been dreading yet hoping for: the remains of Suzanne Morphew. This discovery, although heart-wrenching, provided a tangible piece of evidence in a case that had been mired in uncertainty and speculation. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation confirmed the identity of the remains, bringing an end to the agonizing wait endured by Suzanne's family and the community. However, this confirmation also cemented the tragic reality that Suzanne was never coming home. The discovery of Suzanne's remains was a turning point in the investigation. It refocused the narrative from a missing person to a murder case, reinforcing the gravity of the charges faced by Barry Morphew. At the same time, it shed light on the scale of the alleged crime and the lengths to which the perpetrator had gone to conceal it. For the Morphew family, the discovery of Suzanne's remains was a devastating blow. Their worst fears were confirmed, and they had to grapple with the harsh reality of Suzanne's fate. This finding also cast a shadow of grief over the community, who had held out hope for Suzanne's safe return. The news was a stark reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst and the loss of a beloved mother and friend. While the discovery of Suzanne's remains brought some closure, it also raised a myriad of questions. Where had she been all this time? What were the circumstances that led to her death? And most importantly, who was responsible? The quest for justice for Suzanne was far from over, and the investigators were more determined than ever to uncover the truth. The discovery of Suzanne's remains answered one question but left many more unanswered. Suzanne Morphew's case, filled with bizarre clues and twists, forces us to reflect on the nature of crime and investigation. The perplexities of this case offer a stark reminder of the multifaceted nature of crime and its investigation. It raises probing questions about the intricacies of human behavior, the fallibility of our systems, and the extent to which we can rely on them to deliver justice. Suzanne Morphew's story is a poignant illustration of the interplay between the personal and the criminal, where a troubled marriage morphed into a suspected murder. It underscores the often blurred line between domestic discord and potential violence, a line that is, tragically, crossed far too often. This case also brings to the fore the vital role of forensic science in crime investigation. The tranquilizer gun cap found in the dryer, the suspicious phone activity, the chipmunk alibi, and the spy pen. All these disparate pieces of evidence coalesce to form a mosaic of circumstantial evidence. They highlight the power of forensics in piecing together a narrative from the seemingly mundane details of everyday life. The Suzanne Morphew case is a testament to the dogged persistence of law enforcement. Despite the challenges, the twists and turns, they remained resolute in their pursuit of truth. Yet it also underscores the difficulties they face. The painstaking sifting through clues, the dead ends, the false leads, and the constant pressure to solve the case. Moreover, the case illuminates the darker side of human nature. It reminds us that crime is not an abstract concept, but a chilling reality that can infiltrate even the most seemingly idyllic of lives. It exposes the depths to which individuals can sink, driven by their motives and desires. It begs the question, how can we better safeguard our societies against such tragedies? Perhaps the answer lies in greater awareness and understanding of the signs of domestic abuse, in better support networks for those in troubled relationships, and in more robust systems for crime detection and prevention. What does this case tell us about the nature of crime and investigation? How can we ensure justice for victims like Suzanne? These are questions we must continue to ask ourselves as we strive to understand and prevent such tragedies.